I was born to be the right hand of sin. At the very moment I came squealing into this world, coated in my dying mother's blood, my pale skin was anointed with the proper sigils. A promise that one day I would be of use to evil. And I have been. To list my crimes would be without purpose. They horrify one and all, and rightly so. Imagine it, and I have likely performed the act, or ordered others to do it in my name. I lost interest in accounting it long ago. In any case, when this all-consuming war ends, all debts will be null, as they always are. All avert their eyes as I pass, stalking the halls of the fortress with my trusted servant at my heel, down to its deepest point. Well that they fear me, a towering figure in my black armour, and well known for cruelty. A shame that they do not know what is coming, though. If they knew, they might laugh. I am general of every nightmare under the sun, warlord of the forces of darkness, many-limbed monsters at my command. Yet, even as I push open the outsized door to the cavern of the obeisance pit, still some fear seizes at my heart at the thought of what I am about to do. It is foolish. This is my purpose, what I am here in this world for. It is not even the worst of the things that I have been forced and chosen to do in this war alone. The war has been going on so long now. Kings and peoples rising against the rule of evil. Heroism, cowardice, brilliant victories and incompetent defeats. Every inspiring last stand, every betrayal, every violent clash of blade and sorcery has been leading to this day, the end of all things, as my master demands. All of that is past now. Now I stand on the precipice. Several of them, in fact. The bowels of the fortress I call home houses a pit so wide and so deep that looking into it is like looking into the night sky on a cloudless night. Only this night looks back. Only I and my servant, a man I trust with everything, are here to witness it, the doors locked behind us. I, to stare into that chasm, and he to minister to what I become. The thing in the pit stirs. White light flickers in a sea of black ink, a representation of what it thinks we mortals will recognize for evil. Much of what it wants fits that premise. A society's idea of evil. It reflects the poison that humans pump into their own veins. Again, the vast and monstrous liquid flickers. It is preparing. The creature, the cancerous mass in the flesh of the world, came from below, gurgling up from some unknown hell. I believe that it has always been there, watching silently, waiting until someone built it a world that would not all recoil from it. Only a few take its promises to heart, but a few drops of bad blood are still toxin to the body of the world. The greedy, the desperate, the hateful. I command those forces in its name. It is easy. People like that do not need logic to feed their desires. Smoke will do as well for sustenance, so long as they see others having their few scraps taken away. See, they say, we are at least better than them. Easy. Some resist. They are here today, outside the fortress, bringing their puny might to bear. What few of them are willing to fight, led by their so-called champion. Most lie fallow, waiting for death and pillage to come, accepting fate with little resistance. They cry, they wail, they rage against the unfairness of it all. But will they pick up sword and risk all for their fellows? No. Again, my task is made easy. Flicker, flicker. The demon wakes, its unknowable mind soon to boil from below, claiming the prize its acolytes expect it to. Domination will follow, of one, of all. It is what I have called master all these decades, the sin maker, the first void, the black heart, the emperor of lies. Except that I am the supreme liar here. Little does it know. I arrive for you at the appointed time, I declare, heart beating a little quicker despite myself. My gauntleted hands tighten into fists. This is the precipice, and I shall not fall. The abyss does not talk to me. It cannot. There is no single will behind it, only the summarized malevolence of the entire human species. There is a feeling, though, one that is always with me, a force of will, a desire for destruction, a need for hate. It wants to put all of that into me, fully, where before I have only had the slightest of tastes. The battle draws near, and it intends to take the field, to destroy everything that remains willing to fight it. My body will suffice for such a task, and when it is done, when the champion lies broken and ruined amid desolation, then it will abandon me as useless carcass and spread its pestilence across the land without opposition. Until some is nurtured, of course. But that will be years and uncountable suffering distant. That is the future I have helped it toward, ever since the monks left me before it as a child offering, naked, shivering and filled with terror. And I bear witness, my companion declares, only the slightest shake in his voice. It is a harder thing for him. He has none of my power and strength. Well, maybe more than a little of the latter. My servant, my friend, my lover. Another thing that the darkness doesn't understand. It only sees the sin the people would attribute to us if they knew. It knows nothing of love, forbidden or otherwise. I hope he understands why I chose this course. We have talked of it often enough, and he assures me that he is as committed as I. More, despite the cost. The Sin Maker floods up from its pit, tendrils flailing for me, ready to push its entirety into whatever cavity it first finds. It will consume me and walk around in my shell until its will runs out. I pay it no heed. I can never know how my lover sees me in his most honest moments, in the veiled corridors of his mind. For all my power, I still cannot see something so close. A part of me always wants to try and compel truth from him, as I might from countless others. I resist. I always have, because it's all I can do to keep our bond. Ours is not a fair relationship. I hold all the blades, and he has nothing more dangerous than ink and quill. Well, that's not entirely true. Now, I call to him, and from his scribe's bag he produces a simple sphere of polished silver metal, throwing it to me with practised grace, an unparalleled work of secret spell-forging, a piece I have ruined nations to conceal. Salvation. I catch the thing and slam it into the nearest questing tendril. The reaction is instant and terrible. The air becomes like lightning, the pained scream of something that fancies itself a dark god. The orb shakes in my hand, the Sin-Maker attempting to steal it from my grasp. It cannot. It committed to plunging into a vessel, and the fact that it doesn't like the one I have given it changes nothing. An inky sea slides up from the pit and into the steel pearl, refining itself down into nothing. Flickers in its innards flash at me, as if just maybe evil is afraid. Now, instead of becoming the vessel for that primal thing, I become its jailer. Everything it claimed to own, soon I will. Still the terrible liquid sucks away into the silver ball, and though its weight does not change, I feel like it does. All the mass of sin this thing is responsible for, or gave excuse for man to do to man, swallowed into a single, simple receptacle. It rages at the perceived injustice, right up to the moment that its last liquid tendril disappears into the silvered surface. One last flicker of white and black, and it is gone. An echo of fury, the only thing it leaves behind. My heart steadies, and the electric crackle in the air fades. Once more I look down over the edge. The pit remains dark, but is now empty, save for stone, shadows, and silence. I turn the sphere in my gauntlet, contemplating it. The metal has taken on a darker hue now, but it is still just a distorted, reflective thing to look into, and no more. Just an object. A curio. The tiny prison is perfectly innocuous, by necessary design. No one will ever know it for what it is. None, besides us two who saw the deed done. The secret is strong, I reassure my co-conspirator. Its power will hold so long as we two are the only ones that know it. And with that, I offer the dark god to him to take and do with as he wills. He takes the sphere in hand reverently and looks over its mirrored surface. I know you'll take care of that, I say, whatever happens. Why not throw this into the pit? He asks, quite reasonably. I doubt anyone would find it. I'd rather not risk returning it to whence it came, I say. Keep it, as a memento. It will make a good paperweight. Hubris can be a heavy thing, he says, and it had plenty. Has, I say. Don't forget that. No, he says, a little sadly. I won't forget any of this. These days are almost done, and not knowing what comes next, it is hard for us both. Maybe harder for him. I made my decision to betray my master so long ago that the reasons almost escape me. They have blurred somewhat, if nothing else. I look to my servant, my lover. I could not have done this without him. It was his plan as much as mine, or more. Was it for love? Perhaps in part. More, I think the future after victory came too sharply into focus. That champion doesn't deserve victory, he says suddenly, as if he has partially read my mind. The effort you have gone to, the things you have done, we have done, together, if we had more time. I put a hand on his shoulder, quieting him, calming him. Victory. My blood has always burned for it. Now it comes. It is colder than I would like. There is never enough time, I say, looking up as if I could penetrate the rock ceiling with my gaze. I know what's there, though, above ground in the wastes around the fortress, the ongoing clash between groups claiming to be for dark and light. Out there, humanity's champion awaits. She is a young thing, full of fire and righteousness, and ignorance. She thinks to best me, and my lord besides, with her ragtag force of rejects, misfits, and strange bedfellows. It has taken her years to create this chance, and she will not get another. None of us will. All that remains is to finish my work. I am so close. I take a breath, nod, and look to the doors. I am ready. Good fortune, he says to me. Goodbye, I say, and kiss him before I go to make the end of all things. Outside the fortress, the chaotic swell of battle is on the edge of over. The odds were never in doubt. The champion hunt her few against the horde. The sundry fiends, depraved villains, and slave soldiers part before my clanking armoured form. They were always my army, but still more so now. The blood and chaos pulls back as I stride on, crushing body and bone fallen underfoot. The scene is revealed to me. The champion and her people, beleaguered, but brave, wounded, but defiant. An array of differing faces and backgrounds, a bewildering group that should not hold together, but does through her force of will. The champion turns to see my approach, finishing off some other insignificant as the fighting slows. She is tiny to my eye, and has the dark skin and curly hair of the Sun Marches, a place easily dismissed as containing nothing but goat herders and goats, a place where it was easy to summon up a hero from appropriate stock. The prophecy demanded it, they say. This girl has quested across nations, rallied banners, and destroyed monsters. My lieutenants have fallen to her magic, her skill, and her blade, one after the other. As intended. Prophecies are strange things, stranger still when you see people acting upon them and know the words to be false. It was a convincing performance by the oracle, of course. I should know. I was there. I wrote every sentence that the old crone spoke before she croaked. The natural response to such a powerful vision, it was said. The natural response to the proper poison I would counter. The risk was too great that she might reveal that another had put words in her mouth, and death does make for a dramatic endnote. It's certainly been enough for the young champion to use as a hammer to forge an alliance of nations. She has wielded that weapon well, but her position remains desperate. Better than those that tried to walk her path before her, of course. It took several attempts to find someone that both fit those vaguely prophesied words and was able to live up to them. When I did, though, when she came from nowhere to survive trial after trial, it became all too easy to push events where I wanted them to go. Years it took to get here. Pain and torture and death for this one pure moment. She believes that this hard-fought battle is the work of her own two hands. And it is. But not only that. My hand was in it too. It has been all along, nudging, correcting, right up until I orchestrated this moment. The Sin-Maker simply wanted to end her personally, as the prophecy said. I knew it would not resist playing its part. People believe, and so did it. Even evil can come to think its propaganda true. Now, it is up to the two of us as to how the future turns, pivoting on a lie. Champion, I call. Face me. Face the end. She does, gesturing her allies to stand aside. She believes that she must do this alone. Destroy the Sin Maker in its stolen form. End the end before it can. A battle to be sung down the ages. I size her up. As we both move into open rocky ground, we each have our prowess to call on and our magic. If we are not evenly matched, it is close. You wouldn't think it to look at the scene. I, hulking in black metal, great bastard sword in hand. She, unarmoured and tiny, with a single-edged blade half the size of my own. Wiry and quick, but without heavy muscle to give her strength. Even I would think the bout unfair. But I have seen her fight many a time. This champion has murdered monsters far larger than me. In size, at least. She has broken armies and cut down my best soldiers. I have seen her do it all. This land stands united against the night, she tells me, weapon drawn and keen. It doesn't. Her band can barely hold itself together, let alone the kingdoms that back them, even if they were to win the day. The idealism she holds in her heart would split the supposed forces of decency and good. Without me to fight, they would probably eat their own, each claiming that only their point of view is the just and moral one. Easy to beat, they always have been. The night swells, I say, thinking it the kind of thing the Sin Maker would have said had it been me. I bring my sword into a two-handed fighting stance, its spellforged power oozing dark and ominous. I grip the hilt tighter, anticipating what is to come. The champion, too, assumes the correct pose and says her line. I will end this, for my family. I killed them all. For my teacher. Maimed him. Not sure if he survived. For the Green City. Unleashed unspeakable spawn upon it, and then raised it in an inferno. For Sentinel. Another of her companions, I think. I believe I may have killed him too. I forget. The pit will take you, I say, playing my part as she plays hers. Light the candle. Throw back the night. Her battle cry sounds out clear as we charge one another, swords raised to strike. The secret bound up in her blade lights it aflame, its golden light incandescent, ready to cut and burn whatever she calls evil. For all my manipulations, I never found out what private thoughts sealed that magic up. Even if I could, I would not have. To do so would be to break the power of that supposedly destined sword, as the power of the Sin Maker is contained in my working. The sphere holds. Her sword does the same. I am content to not know and simply feel the thrill of combat. It has been so long since I faced one approaching my equal, and she is that all right. She is so fast, slicing at me with extravagant acrobatic attacks. But for all my monstrous size, I am not as slow as I look. I counter and slash, and begin taking the steps of our dance. Our respective armies look on as we duel, some still killing, but most standing at safe distances from their foes. They all could continue dealing death, but what would be the point? Our fight is where the future is decided. It all comes down to the will of one human against another, it seems. I make a show of it. Aggression unbound, the rage of pure evil. I give her that. I give them that. They have to see it. They have to believe I am that thing. The terrain worsens as the fight gets into full flow, our steps taking us to a slope filled with boulders. Fitting scenery for the denouement. I cleave a boulder in two as she rolls under the strike, and is up and dashing back in before I can complete it. Her next blow I take on my armour, as if I had a choice. But even the power of her shining sword cannot penetrate secret forged steel. Metal rings on metal and the champion bounces back. We exchange more blows, mine vicious, hers full of finesse. Our battle rages on, each of us throwing our strength against the other. Minutes pass, wrung out by the clash of blades. The world watches, waits with held breath. Suddenly the champion charges in, plants one foot on a broken boulder and launches herself high. She somersaults over my head, her agility enhanced at unnatural levels by the power she wields. I counter her aerial sword strike, but she is so quick. A blink and she is back on her feet and stabbing towards me. The moment plays out in my head as I realise that she has overcommitted. All I have to do is use her righteous recklessness against her, and she will plunge herself right onto the tip of my weapon. I smile. I could do it. I could win. I hadn't been sure it was even possible. But that is not the purpose. Instead of plunging my sword point into her breast, I turn my blade a fraction, and she deflects it up, exposing my armpit and the seam between the black plate. She takes the opportunity. Golden fire, bound by a secret, burns into me, right up to the hilt. I fall. She has found the chink in my armour, the weakness it almost killed her teacher to learn, the weakness I allowed her to exploit. Her thrust was strong, near enough to run me through. A lesser warrior would already be meat on the ground. My strength has not yet faded, though soon it will. The champion walks slowly to my side, wary but relief clear in her, even to the dying. She has felled her foe, the enemy that has consumed her entire life. I could raise my blade even now, and avenge myself against this girl that has killed me. My fingers flex, and release the hilt. This is what it takes to sell the lie. And one last thing. Nothing matters beyond this, I say, straining to make the words understood. The champion cocks her head, taking them in. Then her expression changes, falls a little. She understands all too well. Sharing the words with her unbinds the secret that tethers the Sin Maker's worst creations to life. They will all be gone within the hour. I will be gone soon. I think my lover's name rather than whisper it. That is not a line the Sin Maker would have uttered, and this spell is fragile, easily broken by the wrong word. The champion stands over me, not gloating, but satisfied nonetheless. She is radiant despite her clear exhaustion and the gore of battle upon her. She has won, as have I. Pain has a hold on me, but even so, a smile makes it onto my face, as red leaks out of me, and black washes in. I hear her speak one last time before the end. A taunt, a promise of revenge fulfilled. Perhaps a prayer. I do not know. The words escape me. I do not care. I think of my lover, and let the heartbeats run out. I am done. It had been many hours since she had defeated the dark, but the champion would not yet succumb to sleep. The fortress still had to be cleansed, and she and her companions were the ones that could do it. That, and she did not care to think about the Sin Maker's last cryptic words, even though their meaning had already taken root deep down where they could not be pulled out. So she strode the shadowed halls, looking for the remnants of evil to destroy. They were not, largely, obliging. Perhaps it was for the best. She was dead tired, and none of her trusted friends was in fit state to face unexpected demons. Nothing matters beyond this. The Sin Maker's last cut. She had won, but she had needed trickery to do it. Oh, sure, the martial skills she had displayed in that final duel had been all her own, but getting there had required playing up that prophecy. fooling knights' legions into thinking that she was some great hero of legend when she was just a girl, a woman now after these years of war. As more and more came to believe, she had barreled ever faster toward today's final confrontation. The Sin-Maker wanted its showdown, its dark pearl of a victory, and that had destroyed it. Hubris. That had been the downfall of the darkness. It was easy, she thought, easy to exploit. And yet, somehow in its last moments it had known her. It had known that to her, nothing mattered beyond this battle, the battle that was as close to done as she was willing to admit. That was the secret of her blade. She was afraid of what she would be without it. Her worst worry, but not the only one. She had worried that the Sin-Maker would spill out across the land when its borrowed body was dead. The vast liquid evil would have come from her first, and she did not know if even her power could have beaten that. She had broken that body, as her teacher had taught her in his dying words, and waited to see if the end of the world might still come. Nothing had. No terrible release. Only the creation of a corpse from something unsalvageable. Instead, the armies of evil had fallen to pieces without their master, some literally. In the case of the unholy beasts the darkness had stitched together in secret. Without them, the rest of the fight had been bloody, but brief. Most of the slaves had surrendered as soon as they could, or turned their coats to fight for the suddenly winning side. It had still been a bloody business. Necessary one. "You take that way. I can manage this," she told her companion, nodding to the stairs down to the nadir of the fortress. She was given a cautionary look for her trouble. "I think I've proved that I can look after myself," she said. Her companion smiled, nodded, and left her to it. She was glad of the solitude, despite the small danger the place posed. Nothing matters beyond this. The fortress would take years to clear of all its foulness, she thought as she descended toward the now empty pit, the one from her nightmares that she knew but had never seen. Perhaps it was better to burn this place down with all the terrible secrets it kept. In either case, the people needed to be freed from it first. The thought came to her as she came upon a man going the other way, a servant by his garb and scribe's bag. "You're safe now," she said, as she had hundreds of times this night. The man stopped and stared at her. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying, but they met hers and fixed there anyway. The servant was not looking at her like a saviour, she realised. In fact, she could have sworn that a flash of animosity flickered onto the man's features. "You do not seem all that happy to be free," she said, concern in her voice. Some that were made slaves grew to somehow love their masters. She had seen that before too many a time. "I am happy it is all done," he replied, clutching tighter a round metal object he seemed very attached to, and holding her gaze with an intensity she found startling. Was that awe? Enmity? She couldn't tell, and nor could she make out the thing that he carried. She almost left him there and pressed on. Everyone had their secrets, she supposed. In here, though, such things were too dangerous to be left alone. "What is that?" she asked, extending a hand. "I'd rather keep it, if you don't mind," the man said, almost sadly. Now she had to have it. People didn't say things like that without reason. Not here. "Let me see," she said, the words no threat, but full of faith that they would be obeyed. That was what her victory had earned. The servant smiled, though not one with any humour. He did not move, though. He was thinking about it. She was about to say something stronger when that smile grew a little wider. more genuine? It's just a paperweight. But if you insist, said the servant, and handed over the sphere. For a moment she felt like it was too easy, and found herself scanning the man's face for threat, some sneer, some hint of a trap. She had been fighting for too long, and in peace her instincts were all wrong. Relearning how to be might take a lifetime. That was all right. It had to be all right. She had time now. Everyone did. Humanity's champion looked at the orb, its dark metal surface warping her reflection. What was she doing, she suddenly thought, harassing this man? He was as much a victim as the rest of those the Sin Maker had pressed into service. Probably he had found some trinket to take as a keepsake, a reminder of his newfound freedom. She looked up again, thinking to return the sphere to him, and perhaps make amends for her rudeness. But the man was gone, disappeared into the fortress's corridors, off to stride out into the new world that she had fought and lied to build. Nothing matters beyond this. The champion of humanity, victorious over the greatest evil the world had seen, looked back at the orb, deep into its reflections. She looked into it, and herself. Was that a flicker in the depths? Thank you for listening. If you would like updates on appearances and future writings, please follow me on Twitter at Jamie H.B. Smith. My website can be found at www.jhbsmith.com, and my children's fantasy Frostfire is available online and in bookshops. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a review. Thank you again.